Good evening. My name is Irene Forstner-Müller. I'm the head of the Cairo branch of the Austrian Archaeological Institute of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. I'm very happy to have been invited to present our work here in Egypt, and I would really like to thank the organizers, especially Iris Mostigl, for inviting me. So it's really a pleasure and an honor. Before we start, I would like to ask you to switch off your cameras and your microphones just in case for the internet connection. Thank you very much in advance. Our institute, we are part of the Austrian Academy of Sciences and of the Austrian Archaeological Institute, and we are Austria's only permanent research institute archaeological fieldwork in Egypt. The Institute's status as an official mission of the Republic of Austria was established in the cultural agreement between the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Republic of Austria. Thus, our branch is notified to the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we are called here officially the Office of the Scientific Counselor of the Austrian Embassy. The Cairo branch is not only a research institute, but also a service institution. Its tasks includes the help and implementation of archaeological fieldworks and projects also for colleagues, and the support for all the Austrian activities in this field, including we represent in front of the local authorities like the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. We organize scientific events, and we promote, of course, also young scientists and young archaeologists. Our institute was founded in 1973. It is located in Zamalek. Here you see an image of our institute, and we have a library which is open to the public, and we have guest rooms for accommodations for visiting scholars. Of course, our main work is the field work on archaeological sites, and these I will present you in a minute. The first site, which I'm going to show to you, is Tel El Dabba, ancient Avaris, which lies in the eastern delta, as you see here in the map, in the modern province of Sharqiya, about 8 kilometers north of Fayous. Avaris was the capital of the Hyksos kings during the 15th dynasty, and with a size of approximately 260 hectares, the site was one of the largest towns in the ancient Near East during the second millennium BC. It lies on the Pelusiac branch of the Nile, which is the easternmost branch in ancient times, and therefore it had a very important strategic position. It was the gateway from the Nile Valley to the Near East and to the Mediterranean, both by water and land. Since the later Middle Kingdom, for those of you who are more familiar with Egyptian history, the later 12th dynasty, when the first immigrants from the east came, it was an important trading center and a harbor city. During the Ramesside period, it was the southern part of Pyramesse, which was the delta residence of the Ramessides. The eminent Egyptian Egyptologist Labib Habashi identified the place with Avaris in Pyramesse. Our institute is working here since 1966, so over more than 50 years, and me heading the project since 2009. Here you see the modern landscape. There is the view from the west to our very nice excavation house, which you see here behind, this white building. The landscape nowadays is very different from ancient landscape. This is due to the reorganization of the agriculture in the time of Muhammad Ali in the 19th century. Then the area was leveled and flattened to make the area ideal for agriculture. Before, there were hills and valleys. Thus, the reconstruction of the ancient landscape, especially on a delta site, is of enormous importance. Here you see a map of our work from the situation, how it looked like in the second millennium, in the Pharaonic period. You have here Avaris. You see very nicely that the town was an island, so it was surrounded by water here, the Pelusiac branch of the Nile, the main branch, and the several islands which are settled, as you see here, the green fields. Such reconstructions can be achieved through various methods. Like, for example, a method called auger drilling of boreholes, as you see here, our French colleagues, where you put in different distances, you make holes and investigate the sedimentation and the soil which comes out. And this is a very important work to analyze the core samples, in this case of the harbor area and the Nile branches. As you see here our French colleague, Cécile Vettori, who is working on her PhD work in our mini labor in Teledaba. And this work is done in cooperation with the University of Strasbourg, Lyon, CNRS. So we can do a lot on the field or in the excavation house. One of the most important discoveries of recent years in Avaris is the finding of a palace from the 15th dynasty, from the Hyksos rulers, which is more or less in the middle of the town. And you see here the complicated architecture with a lot of magazines and several rooms. Another project of ours, and now we go to the very south, is this at the site of Hisn el Bab, which is about 10 kilometers south of Aswan, close to the island of Philae. This area is the ancient border between Egypt and Nubia. The Institute has worked there with the directorship of Pamela Rose, my colleague, at Hisn el Bab since 2012. We carried out excavations and also we made a laser scan of the entire fall. As you can see from the pictures, and it's a very nice view, the site stands on the hilltop overlooking the first cataract. It consists of a series of fortifications dating from the Roman to the very early medieval periods, and this was probably intended to control the passage of people and goods traveling up and down the Nile in this part of Egypt. However, border locations can be a source of conflict, and some of the most unexpected finds from Hisn el Bab relate to this. Here you see on the left side, two of our workmen excavating a pit full of dumped bodies. Many of the bones show severe and often fatal battle-related injuries. For example, as you see here on the top right, on this picture, this shows a piece of a skull with a cut from a sword blade. Mixed in with the bodies was a lot of archery equipment, as you see here below. And you see here iron arrowheads and the decorated wooden arrow. We are not sure who these people were. Whether they carried out an attack on the fort or whether they defended it. We cannot say, but the arrows suggest that they came from Nubia or from the Eastern Desert. And here is an imaginative reconstruction of such an archer, although it is very unlikely that they rode camels in this time. The object to the left is another piece of archery equipment from Hisn el Bab, a thumb ring, which was used when pulling a bow. These were very typical of the inhabitants of the Nile Valley in Nubia and the Sudan, and they also suggest that there were people of Nubian descent at the fore. Since 2012, the Austrian Archaeological Institute has run another project which focuses on abandoned Nubian villages in Upper Egypt, whose construction and abandonment is closely linked to the flooding following the erection of the Aswan Dam by the British around 1900, and its later heightenings, first in 99 and then in 1930s. The villages are located south of Aswan in the area between the old British Dam and the High Dam, built in the late 60s. In the immediate vicinity is the fortress of Hisn el-Bab, which I have shown to you before, as well as the original location of the Temple of Philae. The investigation of very early photos and also early maps has shown that the houses were not built before 1999. It must have been abandoned later than in the 1930s, prior to the flooding which was caused by the second heightening of the British Dam. These settlements therefore present a wonderful opportunity and a rare example of a very short span of use in combination with a planned systematic abandonment without being disturbed later. So from this information here, we're trying to create a map showing here the shifts in settlement as a consequence of the various flooding events. Scanning again, the architectural fieldwork was done on detailed documentation of the structures, as you see here to the left, with a simpler method. Then we used the laser scan to reconstruct the houses. An important part was also our social and cultural and social anthropological work, fieldwork, carried out by our deceased colleague Nadia El-Shuhoumi, who did a wonderful job in interviewing the people in this area. During her research, we got information about architecture, building techniques, use of objects, and room function. This project is now completed and also published. A new project of ours is a little bit more to the north in Komombo. The site is located about 545 kilometers north of Aswan. Modern Komombo is an industrial town and it's away from the Nile, and the sugar industry dominates in this part of Egypt. The archaeological site until recently mainly been known for the Ptolemaic temple dedicated to Hareres and Sobek, and this is one of the major touristic sites in Egypt. This project is a joint Egyptian-Austrian mission. In this slide, you see our first fact-finding visit in Komombo in late autumn 2017. Here my colleague Pamela Rose, myself, my husband Wolfgang Müller, and our now cooperation partner, Dr. Abdelmenem Said, who is General Manager of Aswan and Komombo Edfu and Abu Simbel, and who also the head of the tourist police, Mohammed Bey, and both of them were extremely helpful in initiating this project. Ancient Komombo, like all major towns in pharaonic Egypt, is situated along the Nile. The plain of Komombo, as you see here, extends around 450 square kilometers east of the Nile. The Nile is in this area wider and bends to the east, as you can see here. The landscape has changed enormously at the beginning of the 20th century when the first Aswan Dam was built by the British. Then the desert was changed into an agriculturally used area. So you see here all these green fields. Also then the sugar processing industry started. The name Komombo derives from Nebit or Nebu, so ancient Egyptian expression or name, Coptic Imbu and Ombos in Greek. This could hint that the place was the starting point for expeditions to gold mines and quarries in the east. The area is already settled since very early times, and in the Roman period, it was the metropolis of the first Upper Egyptian nome. In the periods before, the situation is less clear. However, we can say that already in the Old Kingdom, the town had an important position, and also in the first intermediate period. The area protected as antiquities land, as you see here, the tell or the rest of the tell covers an area of about 6 hectares. And the aim of our work is not the investigation of the temple, but the investigation of the town and its hinterland. We started our work in November 2018, and here you see an image of our surveyors, Christian Kurze and Astrid Hassler, who provided us with a map, as you see here, and did research and documented the structures, pointed red in the red color. Besides that, we did a kind of survey called magnetic survey, which was undertaken in cooperation with Thomas Herbig of the University of Warsaw and the Polish Academy of Sciences, who is a long-term research partner of mine. And you see here also the results to show you some features of the ancient town. The latest activity at Komombo, apart from things associated with the developments of tourism there, was the building of a fort, and the fort is on top of the tell, as you see here in the light red circle. This was built as part of the defenses of Upper Egypt against any attack by the Mahdist state in the Sudan, since Komombo stands at the end of a wadi system from the Eastern Desert, which was a well-known route, or until now, into the Sudan. The fort itself was built in early 1886, and we are very fortunate to have documents from the time to provide more information about it, including this plan, which you see here on the left, dated 1886, and a photograph of 1893, which shows the fort here above, towering over the temple. Here you see the result of our cleaning of the fort. The left-hand picture gives an overview of the whole structure here, and the right-hand picture shows the fort entrance, which is fantastically survived, preserved. The wooden beam forming the threshold of the gateway was still in place. Our work has brought to light many remains of the soldiers who lived in the fort. They were clearly a multinational group, since we have found pieces of handwritten documents in Arabic, in French, in English, and also Italian. They also had access to items from many different countries, also including Austria. Perhaps the tarbouche seen here to the left, and certainly the matchbox, which is from a company of Styria. We also know that one of the main occupations there was smoking. So since many cigarette papers and their packaging are one of the most common things we found, again, a close reference to Austria. We also investigate, and this is the main project in Komombo, the pharaonic town of Komombo, which is the area we are working now, is the area between the Ptolemaic temple, which you see here, and the Crocodile Museum, which was built within the framework of a site management project during the directorship of Dr. Zahi Hawass, who organized the place here completely new. On this plan, you see the remains of the town of the first intermediate period. You see here a massive enclosure wall, here this red part, which divides the actual town, which is to the south, and the funerary areas. The wall is at least 3 meters high and has several faces, so it's quite impressive. In the southern part is the edge of a large building with many rooms and silos. This seems to be a kind of administrative building or storage sector. The building has several faces, and they all date to the very beginning of the Middle Kingdom, to the late 11th dynasty, early 12th dynasty. The structures are made of unburned mud brick, and they are reddish and burned, and these reddish layers are visible all over the tell. As you see here, also the very reddish structures. This is the eastern part of this building with rooms. Here you have the silos squeezed within the rooms, and another silos. You see one of the rooms with a silo, And most probably these are granaries, and there are vessels along the walls. So this is a room, there's entrance, which was later walled in, and part of the. In the corner, there is a massive mud brick structure, which was very puzzling to us before, but in the end, it could be identified as the superstructure of a large mastaba 4, with at least 3 entrance shafts in the south. And here you see these 3 entrance shafts here, and the enclosure wall and the superstructure. The shafts are 3.18 meter deep. The entrance is from the north and it's vaulted. And in the end, when the chambers were filled in, the shafts were walled up by mud bricks, as you see here. The deceased are usually buried here in the left lateral position, as you can see here. The head is usually towards the north, facing to the east. The bones are heavily burnt, and the only grave goods found here are pottery vessels, as you see here. And my colleague Urs Matic is working on the pottery of this period. The study of pottery is an important part of archaeological work. It allows us an insight into the life of the ancient Egyptian people. And you see here the work and the detail done by Mary Ownby and the detailed investigation of the several sherds. Besides that, we use another method. We undertake systematic sieving of all the soil which we excavate, as you see done here. This brings to light smaller finds like very small animal bones, like for example, bird bones or fish bones. And sometimes we also find the most spectacular finds like ceiling impressions, as you see here. Some of them bearing the names of old kings. In this case, it's a king of the 5th dynasty. Besides excavation, our institute does a lot of other cultural activities. The institute has supported efforts to assist with restoration projects after the troubles of the last few years. In 2011, a bomb explosion close to the Islamic Museum in Cairo caused considerable damage to the objects. And following a call from the UNESCO, the Institute, together with the Austrian Embassy, provided the services of a conservator to work on metal objects from the museum. Principally, we restored a lamp of the Mameluke period, and also we undertook training of local conservators through a program of workshops. The lamp you can see now on display in the Islamic Museum when you enter it. We also organize exhibitions in cooperation with our Egyptian colleagues. Here you see an exhibition at the Cairo Museum in the series Object of the Month, where we celebrated the return of cultural heritage objects from Australia and Austria in cooperation with the Cairo Museum. So he's here the director of the Cairo Museum and His Excellency, Dr. Georg Stillfried, giving a speech so together the Australian and Austrian embassies. Besides that, every year we celebrate our annual Institute Day. Here you see Professor Christiane Köhler of the University of Vienna, who's giving a keynote lecture on the necropolis of Helwan and city of Memphis, because of course there are other Austrian archaeological projects here in Egypt, a lot also from the University of Vienna. We also organize workshops, like here the workshop held on riverine harbors in Egypt in cooperation with the French Institute, with the IFO, and the Netherlands Flemish Institute here in Cairo. A major task and for us is the publication of our work. So we are not only on the field, but at least half a year we are in our office and we write articles and books. And you see here our recently published monographs. Information on further activities can be found on our webpage. And the last thing I would like to mention is also that there is a possibility or opportunity to go to Vienna as a guest scholar for a couple of months within the CESH postdoc grant of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. to which scholars who already have the PhD can apply every year. So you're cordially invited to come. Of course, such a project can never be done alone. And I'm very grateful to all the members of the missions, to the specialists of Commonwealth and the Eastern Delta who work with us. Also, of course, the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, especially the Egyptian part of our joint team, the local inspectorates, and all the other institutions mentioned or not mentioned here. And I would especially like to thank the Austrian Embassy and also our ambassador for his never-ending support. Thank you very much for your attention.